Hello and welcome to the Wake Up with Gratitude podcast. I'm your host, Julie Boye, and today I have a very good longtime friend on the podcast. Welcome to Christa Rielba.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here, Julie. This is going to be amazing.
This has been a long time coming. I am very excited. Now, Christa, in her own right, is also a podcast host. Hers is called Ambitious Mama Podcast, which I definitely recommend you listen to because some of her interviews are just going to blow your mind. I love her podcast. She is a professional network marketer, and we call her a digital marketing maven. But more than that, Christa and I have known each other for over a decade. We actually were introduced through a mutual friend, Leanne Jacobs. And at the time, Christa had this incredible business called Petite Fashionista. And I remember being in awe of Christa because this was in a time when influencers didn't, that word I don't think even existed when you built that business.
No.
And I was like, who's this like petite, beautiful woman from the fashion industry getting into a health business? Like, what? I don't understand any of this. But what's cool is Krista's going to share her story to explain how she went from this, incredible business that she built in the fashion industry to today being a professional network marketer, being partnered with USANA like me. And we're just going to really talk about what's really exciting right now and how Christa is serving the world in so many new ways. So if you don't mind sharing your story with us.
Amazing. Julie, we've grown so much. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
It just, like, to me, the memory always goes back to the Burlington Library.
Oh my God.
Those were like our early days before kids and
Yep.
incredible. So, you guys, my story, here we go. Let's see here. So currently, everything that I do is all about empowerment. Every move I make is about empowerment. So I had to ask myself recently, what is that about? Why do I feel so aligned and so why do I love what I do so much? And, it made me go back to when I was a little girl and just kind of reviewing my life. And I had amazing parents and amazing mom. And, I love my family so much. I didn't have like a hard, childhood. Mom always told me you're special, like I was a good childhood. But here's the thing is growing up, for whatever reason, no, my mom didn't, drop the ball whatsoever. But my self-worth wasn't really there, and I didn't feel super confident and I didn't feel empowered, but I did have this inner knowing that I wanted to do big things.
Mm.
Right. And, I knew it. I just knew it. I made that decision very young. I was like 13 years old. And I told my mom, as soon as I turn 18, I'm moving to Los Angeles and I'm going to, do something amazing. I'm going to be a model or a fashion designer or something. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, we live in a small little town. No one has ever left ever. So anyways, eventually in the young teenage years, she convinced me to trade in LA for Toronto, just so, at least so I could be in the same country, same province. So I was like, I didn't know. I've never even been to Toronto. So I was like, okay, sounds good. Sounds like a glamorous city. I'll take it. So anyway, 18 years old, I literally kept my word. I was packed my bags, very little money to justify moving on my own to a big city. Didn't even go to my high school graduation. I was like, I'm out of here. And I went to Toronto to pursue my dream of becoming a fashion designer. So I went to school there and I quickly realized, I said, this is not super empowering because you're teaching me to be an employee.
Mm.
And I went to the dean and I said, okay, wait a second. Like, you're teaching me all these skills. It's just going to leave me in a place where I'm not going to feel like I can do all these big things that were like kind of bubbling inside me. He's like, okay, you need to switch to business and marketing. Okay. Switch to business and marketing. Okay. Which was a really great move. And then learned all the skills of business and marketing within the fashion industry. And then I pursued everything. Another thing that I kind of said in my head was like, as soon as you graduate, Christa, you have to travel. Like, these things that I get stuck in my head and I just like they're non-negotiable. And then I went to at West Africa. I went to West Africa where I spent, actually there was a training period in rural Quebec, and then West Africa altogether is about 8 months. Now, all of this to be said, okay, so I went to West Africa and all of a sudden I'm back in Toronto, back in the fashion industry. But there's still this inner desire to create this big life. And I didn't know what that meant, but for some reason I thought the fashion industry would really fill that glamour, the glamour of it, doing it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I set out to do that career, and I quickly found a niche, right? Petite fashionista, which you guys, those of you who are listening, niche, that's obviously the ticket to speaking to your audience. So I'm skipping over lots of parts here, Julie, but I found my niche. I was working with celebrities, I was on TV, etc. But there was something missing. And it was literally leading me to the bookstore and to the health food store. And then I was supposed to be looking at like fashion magazines and stuff, but instead I was in the personal development section.
Mm.
And I was in the health food store, just like learning and just checking things out. And it was this inner desire to support women and not just what they were wearing. But why did I care about that? I wanted them to feel good. I wanted them to feel empowered. I wanted them to feel like they could do anything. The same way that small little town girl who, was the first to leave her little town, felt. So I was like, okay, so I'm in the personal development. The very first book I read was from Robin Sharma. And I was like, this is it. There was filling this void. I can just tell you that I was just literally being drawn. And then this event was being advertised like many other thousands of events in Toronto. And it was called WellSpot, a women's symposium.
What?
A women's symposium of wealth and wellness.
Yes.
And there is zero reason I needed to go. Zero. But here's the thing, you guys, I was successful, but I couldn't even afford a ticket.
Right.
I think it was about $100 or $150 or something. So I send an email to who I now know is Leanne, but to the event organizer. Mm-hmm. And I said, what if I promote the event? I'm just looking for a free ticket. I'll be a sponsor, a media sponsor. And, where there's a will, there's a way. And she's like, yeah, of course, send me a ticket. Okay. So here I am, 25 years old at the Diesel Playhouse, which now stands multiple condominiums. And 25 years old, my eyes are wide, my ears are open. And I was just so ready. I was just such a sponge. I was like, what am I missing? What am I missing? I want to feel good. I want to feel good. I want to create a life that feels good, not that looks good.
It's so interesting that you bring it back to WellSpot, because I remember a few little things like Laura Langmeyer spoke,
yes,
which was a huge, big name at the time.
She's
still quite a leader amazing in self-development, but this was a thing about our friend Leanne is she just would ask everybody.
Yeah.
She had no qualms or issues about asking. And I love how you just casually said, I messaged the event organizer, asked if I could trade promoting the event for a ticket. Back then, that was not normal. You didn't do that because the influencer space wasn't even really established. So, we talked about in your intro about you being a digital marketing maven, you were thinking ahead from a marketing perspective in ways that, we didn't even acknowledge probably for another 5 years after you had started these kind of activities. So you're at WellSpot, you're surrounded by all these amazing women. How does the topic of USANA and these vitamins come up?
Well, you and I just got out of a 3-day amazing conference, which we might get to. But, when you're in that space and you're just vibrating so high and you're like, what do I do? What do I do? And I remember just going through the crowds and saying, okay, who organized this event? I have to meet her. Right. And I'm literally fishing through, who is it? Who is it? And they brought me to Leanne. I'm like, thank you so much for the ticket. I don't even know where to start. And she was just so calm, so grounded. Right. And it was I have a little guest coming in here right now.
Hi, bud.
Everything.
Okay.
Guys, kids, everything.
Perfect. I will be there
and this
shortly. I can't wait to help you. That's Marcus. Okay.
Oh, right. Because your kids are home again.
They're home for virtual school. They've now
Yes.
experienced 3 ways of learning, Julie.
Well, just for a pause for a moment to say,
Yes.
Christa, I feel you because I have been doing the homeschooling, unschooling model for almost 3 years now. Like it's been a long time since we've been doing this. And this moment where we're recording, my daughter is actually doing a mother's helper with a local friend. So like she's not in the house, but so many times I saw your arm and I was like, I know exactly what's happening right there because that happens to me. I'm like, I've been recording podcasts for a year. And she's home. She knows when mommy's door is closed, you don't open it. Why do they open the door, Christa?
This arm usually works, this move. I don't even know who it is. I just know there's someone and I'm like, nope.
Could be your husband. Yeah, it could be. And it's so interesting. It's like my husband works from home too. It's like they could ask him, but for some reason they need, anyway, I just thought it was important to pause for a moment to say like, you and I are running these businesses and we're podcasting and we're doing all these things and we're moms at the same time. Like they're not separate. You can't.
They're not separate, and we'll come back to where we were there.
Yeah.
But the thing is that's, I think as a mom, you're almost designed to be an entrepreneur because you're all of a sudden you're multitasking and you're taking care of people. But sometimes I speak to moms and they feel that it has to be so separate, but really if you just kind of integrate it, and it's going to be imperfect and might even be messy sometimes, but that's really the key, and I'll probably get into like what I've seen, my older son Curtis pick up, over our journey. It's really quite remarkable. But going back to
you were with Leanne. You got to meet her for the first time. You're super excited about what the heck is she doing? I don't even know.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Yeah, I just really have to remark on something that I noticed about her that I hope I embody. And it was, so success is one thing because we all can, especially in this digital age, right? It's quite easy to look successful. Okay. It is very easy to have the Pinterest, whatever. Okay. But when you actually meet someone in real life and they've got their shit together, right? That they can actually be present and grounded with you and be in such a space that they can be abundant and share their knowledge, their resources with you. That is an energy I did not yet experience. And at that point, I was already in Toronto for maybe like 7-ish years. I did not experience until I met Leanne. Yeah. And that's really what I noticed. I was like, there is something here. So that's when I was like, hey, can I pick your brain? I need to know what to do. And we went for coffee the next Sunday, Starbucks at Yonge and Erskine, uptown Toronto there.
I really love how you have these really specific memories of starting your business. Now, let me ask you, you mentioned that you had this successful Petite Fashionista business, but you didn't have the $100 for the ticket. So back then, it was a very different investment to start a business with USANA. Today, it's $12 in Canada. But back then, the investment was quite different. You had to come up with at least $1,000. I know when I started, it was so funny. Leanne's like, yeah, I think it's like $1,000. I'm not really sure. Can you just give me your credit card? I was like, yeah, sure. Let's literally how I started my business. I was like, yeah, okay. I think, $1,000. Yeah. And get some products. Sure. We'll figure it out later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did you and Mike were together, your now husband, right?
Yeah.
Come home from this event, you have coffee with Leanne. You're super excited. How does the conversation go with Mike?
I didn't tell him.
Oh, you didn't tell him?
No, I didn't tell him for months.
What? I did not know that part of your story. Oh my goodness. Okay. So no telling the partner. Okay.
Well, there's one strategy, but the thing is I didn't really know what I was doing.
Okay.
I didn't know what it would be.
Right.
I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't know any of those things, but I did believe in something bigger that I could not yet put to word. And I was not yet prepared to be challenged on.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So I say, like, if you're going to go to your partner with an idea for a business or something that you want, quote unquote, permission for, which no one can give you permission but yourself, you better be sure as heck grounded and strong in what you want, you know. And then, I mean, a decided woman, good, you know, no one can get in the way of her. But, you know, then I wasn't there yet. So just kind of like, you know, Mike was used to me kind of doing my own thing and just, you know, working on all these things and, you know, hustling about. And I was like, just gave him some vitamins. And then, you know, eventually, you know, there was a qualification that came up to time about 8 weeks later where I was like, need your credit card. And it was the best investment he ever made.
And to be clear, you guys are happily married, 2 kids,
Yes.
like it all worked out for the best.
Oh
So,
gosh.
but I will say, you know, when you are bringing this to a partner or spouse, you're selling them, like you're
Yeah.
showing up and you're doing a sales pitch to them. And likely, you know, when you're introduced to network marketing, your partner may or may not even have seen any information, and they have all these preconceived ideas of what this is going to look like, how it's going to affect your time. So you have to have that confidence to come in, and you're not asking for permission. You're sharing a decision you've already made, and you're just making sure that they're aware. And I mean, support would be great. It's super interesting because we had some training at this 3-day event that you and I were just at about how to sell your spouse, you know. And it's funny because I invested in a full year program. It's a $10,000 program that I invested in. And I knew before I spoke to my husband, like, is he listening? But I knew before we had our conversation that I was going to do it and I was going to figure out how to pay for it. There's a monthly installment. I was like, all I have to do is every month I have to, you know, grow by this much to make it work. And we like had a negotiation and we came to some, you know, deals and things. But I was like, I knew that before we left the conversation that I was going to get there. And I think, you know, sales is scary. You know, asking people to do things is scary. But like you said, when you were in Leanne's energy, you were like, I just need to be a part of this. So let's fast forward it a little bit in your journey. So there was a point where you said, Petite Fashionista, I'm no longer going to do that. And I'm going to invest my time and my energy in my network marketing business. What was that moment like for you?
Well, the thing is, the first kind of step was, okay, how does this integrate, right?
Yeah.
So it was about helping women feel good and look good, right? That was a kind of the easy integration. And then I realized that I wanted them to feel good so much more. And I knew that that would just, you know, have that beautiful effect on their hair, their skin, their nails, their confidence, how they carry themselves. And they could have been wearing a paper bag and it really wouldn't matter because they would feel good, you know. And the happiest girl is the prettiest girl, right? Like that's just how it goes. And so I made that decision probably, I would say it was about a year in.
Okay.
And it was probably after attending my first convention and seeing the bigger picture and being like, whoa, there's a big life-changing opportunity where I could really build something significant for my family. Didn't have one yet, but I seen that. And you remember, I was moved to tears. It was like day one. And I was just like, whoa, how did little me from Amherstburg, Ontario find this world-class company that could change the lives of thousands of people if I just continued to show up? So it was really humbling.
There is something special to be said about attending events. My life also transformed after I attended my first convention because Leanne basically said, she's like, you already have a ticket. It came with your pack. I'm like, okay. She's like, you need to get a plane ticket for Salt Lake City for these days. I've already booked the hotel. You just need to show up. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I did. And like you, I made a massive decision at the same time, which was I dropped out of school. I was going to school to be a teacher. And I'd been to school for 8 days. Luckily, I had not paid my tuition, so I could drop out with, you know, only a deposit. It's crazy. I don't think you could do that today. And then dove into my business actually full time, which was a crazy decision. But, you know, there's just something about this connection to the company and the heart. And also for me, what I fell in love with is the business model. This business model that really is built on helping others to succeed is actually what leads to your biggest success. So tell me about what does, you had a business before, you had an on paper successful business,
Yeah.
and then you got into this business model. What are the biggest difference, would you say, between like your traditional online business and what we're doing with USANA?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And I have so much to say about that because when I was building Petite Fashionista, I was a part of a program called Ladies Who Launch. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was an amazing program. I think they're international, I think more so in the US, but you could sign up for an incubator. Okay, so the incubator, you're set up with other women, and you literally incubate on each other's ideas. Okay, so there was a clothing line, there was a lunch bag company that it's in business today. There was a few different businesses. Anyways, I love these women dearly, and we were all invested in each other. But here's the kicker is I could be the most supportive friend and want her to succeed so much, but I can't justify going up and going like to spend a day to work at her trade show for free.
Right.
Right? That just can't work, right? So I can only be so invested because I'm not actually a part of her business.
Yeah.
So when I started to grow this business with this model, I was partnering with women that I respected, some of them in the fashion industry, like Shelly Boda, right? And I was like, we can literally be in each other's business, and I can show up for you, you can show up for me. It's mutually beneficial. It's true collaboration,
Yeah.
right? It's not just like collaboration over a competition or women supporting women. It's like you have to live it and breathe it. That's the only way, right? And it creates this beautiful energy that really goes to bring to life that idea of women supporting women, of collaboration over competition, because the actual compensation supports that idea.
Chris, I'm really curious to hear what your life was like. So you've been doing this for now, how many years?
It'll be 13 in May.
Okay. So about 12 years into it. So because I really want to hear about what and how you were building business just before the pandemic started. What was your life like? How were you building right before that moment? Because there is that, I think there's a moment I want to talk about what you've done since then, but tell us about what it looked like before.
Well, this is a really important conversation because I was in my comfort zone. I was showing up. I was what you would call dialing it in. We learned that this weekend too. But I didn't know, because the thing is you guys, is when you go into your comfort zone, it's not like there's these alarm bells that are like, you are entering your comfort zone, danger. But I was like, why am I not getting results? Why am I not growing? Do you know how hard I'm working right now? And it felt hard. It felt, just like, why am I not growing? I'm doing all the things, but energetically, there was a major difference. And things really got shaken up big time once we got locked down, and we had to get creative real quick.
Well, and you have since moved back home to your hometown.
Yes.
You have a house, you have the
Nice.
kids,
Yes.
great husband.
Yes.
I mean, Christa, it's a good life.
It's a great life. Yeah. There's a lot of people from Toronto coming this way now. Oh my goodness.
I will say that. But it's like sliding into a nice warm bath.
Yes.
Feels really good. It's nice and relaxing. You're going to feel good when you get out of it. But what's changing? How are you impacting the world? And I go back to what you said about when you were a young girl and you had this like feeling bubbling inside of you of like, I need to make an impact. I need to make a change. So all of a sudden, the world changes overnight. We are in a lockdown. Your kids are not in school anymore. The ways that you used to do business, I know you used to meet up with your team, like at a local restaurant on a weekly basis, right?
Yeah. Every Wednesday.
Yeah.
Those days are over. That restaurant's closed.
Oh no. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be so shocked because of the way that we spend our dollars has transformed in the past like 10 months. But I want to hear about, why did Christa decide to really change the way that you were doing business at that moment in time?
Well, the idea for Power Hour that we're now enjoying together so much every day it came to me just, okay, so we now have a lot less time potentially because now most of the women we work with have children. How are we going to do this? How can we come together in a big way? How can we collaborate in a big way? And I said, okay, what can we do in 60 minutes if we really come together? And it was really about the whole idea of like Darren Hardy's compound effect, or at least that's who I learned it from, of what are those little things that if we do them day in, day out, that they'll amount to something, right? And you can apply that to fitness, to health, to drinking a glass of water. Like, what are those things that you do? So I had to kind of say, okay, well, I want to make sure that I'm moving my body. So let's make sure we're putting some movement into Power Hour, right? Because I don't want to be, quarantine 15 or whatever it's called. I need to keep my mind right because now my kids are going to be home all the time, right? We're going to be all locked in, and we need to move the needle. We need to make sure there's growth and progression. So in actuality, it's the biggest blessing, or I don't know if I could say the biggest, it's the top three, at least, biggest blessings of 2020, because we learned how to work smarter, come together without any, no holds barred, just come together to support each other. And now, I mean, I think I'm working more effectively than ever before. So I'm not even trying to book a coffee date. I'm saying, do you want to have a coffee on Zoom today? And it's like, yeah, sure. Got PJs on the bottom, maybe a clean shirt on top. Right? It's so much easier.
It is definitely an easier way to create that connection, and you're not geographically bound. Not that you ever were, because you actually manifested your dream and vision to build a team in Hollywood.
I did.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I remember Christa saying like, I want to have a team in Hollywood and California. And you went out and you did it. And ironically, a lot of that team now lives on the other side of the US.
Yeah, now they're all Florida.
So cool. But it's really great that you had that vision to really, bring together our community. And that's the thing is, Christa, I'd really love to hear how network marketing for you is different. Hi. I know
Sorry,
mommy's
Julie, 1 second.
I'm going to pause for a second. I was just saying that I know you've been working a lot this morning. I know you had a longer call than expected before our podcast. You took some time in between. It's those moments in between where we have to address our kids, because if we don't, we can't just be in our office. That's a big thing. Like, we can't hang out in our office all morning anymore. It doesn't work that way.
No.
But I want to hear from you, Christa. If you look at the way you were building your network marketing business back in January of 2020 and how in January 2021 you're building this business, how has it changed?
Well, if we can actually just circle back just for a second in terms of what you just said in terms of our children, like actually this past weekend when we had these little micro breaks, I would like show up and I'm like, hi, love you. Like just be present like as much as possible. But that's like the deal that I made with them the other day, right? It's like, when mommy's working, I'm going to do my best to be present with the people I'm speaking with. And then when I'm with you, I'll be with you. I'll be with you 100%, So in terms of navigating, so now you and I have a big old vision, girl. Like, we're going to triple, quadruple what we've done in the past, right?
I'm trying to I've set my goal to 8 times my income in the next 12 months.
Income. Okay.
8x.
And you're still going to be an amazing mom and an amazing wife. So how we're going to do this is we have to work differently. So just this morning, you guys, I 7 a.m. I had a call. Okay. That would never happen before, but I'm literally in my pajamas, okay? And I'm meeting my team. They don't care what I look like. And I said, okay, we're going to actually get a head start before your kids get out the door. Let's make some moves. And we actually made more moves at 7 a.m. than they would have made an entire week if we did not learn how to work in those small increments of time, right? So this thinking a little bit differently, thinking how you can reach more people in less time, thinking of how I can show up in the most impactful way, how I can launch people with more ease. We don't need to rent a space. We don't need to design a big, hurrah. We can just gather people on Zoom and tell them about our vision, tell them about a project, meet some needs that a specific group may have. So it's really, it's going to be a great year.
Christa, we've been chatting for quite some time, and I really am enjoying this conversation about our profession and what it's done and how it impacts lives. But there's something that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
This summer, you and your husband took some time to be with his family.
Yeah.
Are you open to sharing a little bit about how this was possible for you to be there for Mike and his family?
Yeah. I was actually telling Mike last night, I said, I have, grown through a lot of things, but that was definitely one of the hardest things I've actually done, like sacrifices I've made for my husband, really, So what happened is, so my husband, the family dynamic has never been a close one. We all have different dynamics. His was not one where we were necessarily close with them. We won't get too much into that, but his family lives in Winnipeg. We're Manitoba. We're in Ontario. And we've never visited them with the boys. They didn't know their cousins, nothing like that. So we knew that Mike's mom was not doing well, but we weren't also receiving communication about that. Okay, so there was kind of that lack of communication. So we didn't know if she was either mad at us or if she was really sick. We didn't really know. So that just kind of speaks to the relationship, right? So, well, we watched that doc. Is it a documentary with Tom Hanks, and he's playing Mr. Rogers, not Mr. Rogers, Mr.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, no. It's it's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Yeah.
Mr. Rogers. Okay. So you guys haven't watched that.
Yeah.
So I was like, we have to watch that. This is like, so we kind of know, we don't even really know what's going on. We just haven't spoke to her since, months at this point, and we watched this movie. Now, I've been dating Mike for a very, very, very long time, like since I was 22. And right after, I look at him and I say, we need to get in the car and drive to Winnipeg. And I've been asking for us just to reunite for a long time. He looks at me and he goes, you're right. We're going to. And I said, what? Like, what? Like, I was like, what do you, like, we're going to do this. We're going to drive. Like, we don't even drive to Toronto with the kids. Right. And we're going to drive. And then the US is closed. So it's like 26 hours, right, to get there. And
yeah.
And he was like, yeah. It was like this full body decision that he made, despite, everything that's, happened as a child and everything. And we're just going to go. So, I was like, yep, we're going to go. And I'm really fully encouraging this because I know that healing needs to happen. And when we finally packed our bags and stuff, I was like, okay, so like 2 weeks, there and back, right? Like not anymore. Right. And he was like, well, what, like, I don't know. And I was like, well, what do you mean you don't know? Like, and now I'm freaking out because now I don't want to leave my life. I realize how much I love my life, how much I love my garden, how much I love my family. And I'm really emotional. I'm like, we're going indefinitely? Like, oh my God, So we get in the car, we're driving. And I mean, that's just road trip with kids. It was pretty good. We had lots of good memories, but it's long. And we get there and as a grown woman, okay? Grown-ass woman turning 38 this year, I'm put into a house that I don't know the family, right? And my husband's now 100% preoccupied with his mom. And I love my mother-in-law. I love my mother-in-law dearly. But now all of a sudden I have zero control of my time, zero freedom, and taking care of my children under someone else's roof. Her health declined really, really rapidly from the moment we got there. She was actually quite stable until we got there. And then things just really escalated. And we ended up being there for 2.5 months. And it was incredibly, incredibly challenging and dark. And it's, I don't know if that sounds ridiculous, but it was feeling so isolated. Mike ended up being at the hospital every day with his mom, and then eventually having to make the decision that we had to go back before the lockdown came between the provinces, or else we wouldn't be allowed back into Ontario, and leaving even though she really wasn't well or stable. And knowing that that was going to be it. Right. So we made the long trek home, but it was so hard on the marriage. So we did it, it was one of those things that we had to grow through. My business, really, our community is really what kept me grounded, and just being able to plug into our community. I'm like, okay, you guys, like, it made me feel like myself. Yeah. So thanks for asking. I never really spoke about that, but it was, whoa. I wanted to run away. I was calling my mom. I'm like, I want to go home.
You know, you do this event called Wi-Fi in a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
And we just like Wi-Fi in a Dream, work from wherever. And it's like a happy-go-lucky. It is actually a fantastic presentation. It's all about upbeat. But in this moment where you allowed your husband to have this incredible closure with his mom that he wouldn't have had otherwise, like, it really was the Wi-Fi and the dream that allowed you to, like,
Exactly.
you're the income earner for your family.
100%.
So it's not like, you know, there was like money coming in from elsewhere. Like, if like, and our business does have a beautiful residual stream, which gives us those flexibility in those moments when we need to show up and be present in these very uncomfortable times and be there. And you did it. And it was obviously, it's going to impact the future of your marriage and your relationship with your husband in a powerful way. So I think it was important for us to hear that story today, Christa, because here's the thing is, when we look at you and your smile and your blowout and you look all put together, I wanted people to connect with the part of Christa that went through a big, difficult time. I remember you would like your hair. I was like, oh my gosh, Christa, like, that's not what your hair looks like. But the little things. And I know you said for you, self-care is that weekly blowout. Like, that's a non-negotiable for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I love about you, Christa, is that you still showed up and you knew you weren't your regular self. You knew you didn't have the, like, all the things that you needed for the self-care and the showing up as my best self, but you showed up anyway. And you actually let the community pour into you after you had poured into the community for so long. So grateful for that, Christa. And
thank you.
Really excited for where we are. So Christa, my goodness, I want to wrap it up with something that is really important to this podcast, which is Wake Up with Gratitude. I want to hear just one or two things that you have in your daily habits or your weekly habits that really brings in gratitude for your life.
Well, it was a couple of years ago, I make a vision book every year, like a vision board, but it's a book. And I wrote in there, saying grace with dinner. And we're not necessarily, we're not a religious family. We bring in different aspects of spirituality, but I was like, okay, what will that look like? What will saying grace look like for us? And what it looks like is just simply going around the table and saying, what are you grateful for today? What's one thing from your day that you're grateful for? And there's no wrong answer. Sometimes it's the video game. Sometimes it's, whatever. But that's how we say grace. And that just helps to kind of bring in that energy to the family. And then also in the evenings, I'm sure there are parenting blogs about this. I'm not supposed to do this, but I still lay down with my boys every night until they sleep. So every night, and they still sleep in the same bed. Curtis's bed's been made for I don't even know how long, and he's 10 years old. So the 6 and 10, they sleep in the same bed. So I lay there, and we'll say, not necessarily, sometimes we'll say a prayer, but mostly it's like, what are you grateful for? What are you looking forward to? And we bring in that in different aspects of the day. And then also with Curtis, children have such different personalities. I mean, moms with multiple children, I know you guys know what I'm talking about. But he's the one that has the more intense, fiery personality and needs more tools to unwind and to cope and to get grounded. So typically I'm bringing in those tools that I know, all the different modalities, from breathing to gratitude to EFT to saying affirmations, yoga, everything that he and I work through together. And that's how I'm able to model it myself, teach it to him, and create that dynamic.
Christa, I want to assure you that lying down with your kids while they fall asleep, here's the thing is it will end. And I, like last night, so interestingly, my daughter had a nightmare and came into the bed. She hasn't done that in ages. She used to sleep with me every night. Like she could not sleep on her own. We went through so much trauma. She couldn't be on her own bed. Like it was just really difficult. And I remember in that time going like, oh my God, I don't want my kid in my bed. Like this is not what I wanted. That's not why I have a king size bed. Right. But it goes.
Yeah.
And eventually they grow up and there's not even going to be room for you. And I mean, I know you're petite, but eventually, there won't be room and they're going to be teenagers and they're going to want their own thing. And, the moment, I mean, she came and woke me up in the middle of the night. She had a really bad nightmare. And I was like, come on, it's okay. Come on in. And I was like grateful that she came in for that moment because I knew it would interrupt my sleep, but it didn't matter because I don't have that anymore. And so I just want to assure you that, whether or not a parenting blog agrees with you, just enjoy it so much because it's going to fade so fast and you'll have that memory of that time.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Even as busy as the days go, we still have our nighttime snuggles.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
The trick though is staying awake so that I can go downstairs with my husband afterwards.
See, the good news is my husband's doing his video game streaming at that time. So he actually takes a break during his stream, comes up, gives us a kiss, and goes back to his stream. It's like a deal we made if he was going to do this video game streaming because the goodnight kiss was like, I didn't want my daughter to miss that. Anyways, I love the things that we do as parents and we're like, is this okay? I don't know. And I'm just here to tell everyone who's listening, who's a parent, it's like, it's okay.
It's all right. It's okay.
Honestly.
You're an amazing mom. Everyone who's listening, you're an amazing mom.
Yeah, you're doing great. Christa, oh my goodness. So we know you have this incredible Ambitious Mama podcast, but I know you're on all the socials. How do we find you if we want to connect when we want to connect with you?
Just at Christa Realba. So ChristaRealba, Realba.
Easy to find. All the links will be in the podcast and video, depending on how you're consuming this content and enjoying it. Christa, here's the thing. We could have talked about 15 more topics today.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
So I feel like we'll have to set up another time in a few months to revisit where we are in business, reconnect on social media and all of these things that you're really an expert in and I would love to bring to our community. So thank you again for this time, Christa.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely do another episode when you 8 times your income, girl.
Woohoo! Sounds awesome. Thanks again.
Thank you
Christa.
so much.